Ed Psych Department, the Education and School Psychology. And the reason Lloyd asked me to do this presentation is that I guess I was kind of behind the impetus to create this system. When I first started, I went back to the classroom after 25 years as an administrator, and my mind had turned to mush after 25 years, and I could not remember my students' names, and I kept thinking, I gotta find a way to remember who they are without looking like an idiot. And so I brought in my camera, and I took pictures of all my students. I had first day of class, and I put the camera on the first student, and she'd take a picture of somebody, the next person, and we'd go around the room. Then that night, what I would do is I would take all the pictures, and I put them into a folder. And I had them, when they took their pictures, I'd have them take a piece of paper, write their name under it, so I could figure out who was who. And then at night, I would spend 2-3 hours trying to get everything sorted. And I created a generic classroom seating chart, basically for Stouffer, which you can do. I'll show you how to do that for just about any classroom you want. And I would simply drag those pictures in there, and before in the first day of class, I would tell the students, you can sit anywhere you want, but once you pick a seat, I'd like you to stay in that seat so I know who you were. And so they'd move around, and then they would write their name in, and then I would go through, find the picture, and find the person where they are. I'd drag them in there, and anybody who was missing that day, I'd have to go back and get another picture. So by the time I got done, things worked out pretty well, but it cost me 2 or 3 days of time. And it seemed like it was worth it because then I had that as a seating chart that I could use and get to know my students. And I started looking online for some kind of a software package that might allow me to do that a lot faster. And I found that there were lots of places that were already doing this kind of thing. And when you think about it, every student at IUP already has a picture in their computer. Because when they get their iCard, they have to take a picture. And the problem was that the iCards were being taken care of through the Student Co-op Association, and IUP is not the Student Co-op Association, and so they always had this friction about how to do that. Well, thank God for people like Bill Balint and Lloyd Anya, who was Bill was head of IT services, and Lloyd was the co-chair of the ACPAC, the Academic Computing Advisory Policy Council. And we finally got the university to agree to develop a protocol for getting pictures directly off of the banner. And it took about a year because we had to meet with all the different student groups to get their permission, and the president had to approve it, and that was when we still had a former president who was not too keen on doing these things. But then eventually what happened in the long run is that they were able to get something working. And hopefully we'll get this. And so what it does now, and the bottom line is that I ended up with things that look like this. I take the pictures, download them into my sheet, I get their names on there, then I laminate it, and I can walk around the classroom. I have this when I need it. I also keep these so that 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road, when a student says, oh, can you write me a letter of reference, I can go back and remember who they were. And so I keep all these things. It cost me like $50 for a laminating machine at the Staples. Probably have them maybe even on campus in places. So they weren't that expensive. And so the whole purpose of this presentation is really to show you how I do that. That's why it's not a lot of rocket science. It's just a couple of little tools that you have at your disposal. It's not as difficult as what those of us who just did the Bloomberg presentation are doing something more sophisticated. So I don't want to downplay this, but it's really not something that I think you'll have too much difficulty with. So that said, here's what I basically have done. Well, first of all, why would I do it? Well, one thing is obviously for being able to recognize my students. Second thing is that I use it as an exercise on the first day of class, because the pictures, when they come out, are too big to fit in these squares. And so what I do is I have the students take the pictures. I'll show you how to get it. What you end up with is a folder with all these pictures in it with the name of each student. So what I have the students do is I have them come up, I have a blank screen up there with this chart. I have the student drag his or her picture into where they're going to sit, type in their name, shrink it, and then say something about themselves to the rest of the class. So it takes me a whole class period, but everybody gets to know everybody else in the class, which was kind of one of the advantages of this. So that's what I'll have to walk you through. Basically, the first thing you need to do is go into Banner. And this is already got logged in. Hopefully I haven't lost it yet. find out. You go to the advisors, and you'll see at the bottom now, request student pictures. The request student pictures is the addition that they added when they put it in there through Bill Bolin's efforts, and only my courses will show up. So if you're in here, only courses that you're scheduled to teach will show up. Plus, the way this was set up for protection, according to the federal government, picture IDs are considered directory information. Directory information is information that can be shared, but the student does have the right to say, I do not want my directory information to become public. And for those students, there's a trigger when they first register an IUP that says, make my directory information confidential. And their name will not appear in the directory with their email addresses. All that's taken care of for you, so you don't have to worry about that. So when you click on these, which I'll do here, I'll do all three of these, and submit. Your request has successfully submitted. You'll receive an email notification when your pictures are ready. That's all there is to it. That will now trigger the program to create an email for me and create a zip file with every picture for each of these three classes. I did that last night, so I won't have to wait for this, but it was almost instantaneous. If I go now from here to my email,
It's open here.
well, thank you. It hasn't come in yet, but here's what it looks like when I did it last night. Here's my GSR 615 class. It gives me this link. Here's the bigger class, the 7th. These are online classes, which is another reason I like doing this, because for an online class, I don't ever get to see the students. And I run into them in the hall, or if I want to have some kind of a security system so that they come in to take a test, I'll know who they are. I've got all that information right there. So if I clicked on this zip file, I'd have to log in. And this is my regular network login. And then I can either save it or open it. So I'll save it to my desktop for now. And I'll show you what this looks like in a second. Download complete. You can see down at the bottom here. I'll close this off. There should be a folder now on my desktop, hopefully.
It's still a zip file in your downloads.
Oops, that's right, thank you.
Mark, if you're trying to access H drive is down and clear across campus.
That's all right, I don't think I need it.
All right, good.
Just have to go back to my download file.
Double click on it. It should-
Yeah, this is not the one, this is the one I saved last night, but it's going to look exactly the same as this. This is what it looks like. So each of these now is a picture of one of my students. And the name of the file is set up so it's the last name, first name, and then their email address. So I have access to all that information. Wow. Now, what I did then was to create a generic template, which I have stored right now on this. Here's what I did. I'll make a copy of this for you. I'll show you why I did it this way. And all I did was use Microsoft Word and inserted a table. And so I could, if I was using this room, it would have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 columns and 4 rows, 5 rows. And then I would put 2 boxes for each of the different seats. The bigger box to store their picture, and the smaller box so I could type in their name. And in their name, I already have their name because of the picture ID, but I would have them type in whatever name they wanted to be known as. So if the person's name was Richard, and preferred to be called Dick, I'd have them type Dick. That way I would know what to call him or her when I was in the class. And so the generic seating template simply looks like this. Now I could add columns, I could delete rows, I could do whatever I want to make it fit the classroom that I happen to be teaching. But most of the ones in Stouffer, for those of us who teach here, are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by 6.